It's the first week of 2021, so Christmas has only just been and gone. And over the holidays, the BBC aired a film which received multiple complaints from overly sensitive people who said the film was racist, homophobic, misogynistic, and enforced rape culture, so pretty serious stuff. So obviously this film would have been shown after The Watershed with plenty of warnings. Well, no, because the film in question is Grease. Now, I have a number of complaints about Grease, but that's because I don't like musicals and I think it's a bloody terrible film, but it doesn't deserve the accusations being levelled at it. I suspect it's fallen foul of the woke brigade, who spend all day every day trying to be offended. But as with everything which the people with designated safe spaces deem offensive, there are two things they won't have taken into account. Firstly, Greece is over 40 years old, so the values and standards of that time are different to those of the modern world. And secondly, the film is set in 1959, and that needs to be put into context. The first complaint actually relates to the end of the film. And I have a problem with the end of Grease, when Sandy and Danny get into a hot rod, which, although having no visible means of generating lift, flies off into the sky. And yes, I know it's a metaphor. But the actual complaint is about diversity, because in the final scene, all the characters are white. But here, we have to look at the scene in context. Racial segregation only ended in the USA legally in 1954. But the pace of change was incredibly slow. In fact, there was a survey in 1988 that found almost all neighbourhoods hadn't changed ethnically since the 1950s. So it stands to reason that a film set 5 years after the end of segregation could have a high school with only white kids in it. But if we contrast that to many modern films and TV shows, where diversity appears to just be a box-ticking exercise that doesn't help anyone. In the BBC's 2019 production of Dickens' A Christmas Carol, Bob Cratchit was played by a white actor, Emily Cratchit was played by a mixed-race actress, but Tiny Tim had ginger hair and pale skin. Now, how the fuck was that meant to have happened? In this version of the story, there's been a mix-up at the hospital, and there's a white couple with a mixed-race child and a husband asking a lot of questions. I digress. The next complaint concerned a scene in the film At a Dance, where the couples were informed that only boy-girl dancing partners were allowed. This led someone to take to Twitter and angrily write, "Screw you, Grease, and screw your homophobia." But again, we need to put this in context. I don't think that scene was meant to be homophobic. But Grease was set in the 50s and made in the 1970s, and given that homosexuality wasn't legal in parts of the USA until 2003, it's unlikely there would be any positive gay role models. Throughout the 70s and 80s, gay people were portrayed through horrible caricatures and stereotypes. The first positive film I can remember seeing about gay men was Philadelphia. Although that's about AIDS, so positive probably isn't the best word. Next, we deal with rampant sexism, as Rizzo is apparently slut-shamed, causing many woke people to cry into their dairy-free mochachinos. I haven't seen Grease for about 20 years, but I think Rizzo is the one who puts it about a bit, or at least gets a reputation for putting it about a bit. And at the time the film is set, women who were rumoured to be sleeping around fell from grace and got a reputation very quickly. And if they fell pregnant, they either went off to friends in the country until they could have the baby and give it away for adoption, or they were off to a backstreet abortionist. I don't think any of that happened in a family-friendly musical. Next we come to the complaint of blatant sexism and misogyny, as Sandy is forced to change her appearance to please Danny Zuko, the bastard. Except, isn't John Travolta's character surprised to see the transformation? And if you're a man of a certain age, you'll remember Olivia Newton-John in those trousers that were so tight they had to be sewn onto her. So I'm guessing the subtext to this complaint isn't that the character changed her appearance, it's that she changed her appearance to be more attractive, rather than being a gender-fluid, androgynous mess like so many of the complainants are bound to be. But the last complaint is the really big one, and it concerns a line in a song which I think is called Those Summer Nights, although I didn't bother to check. It's the one where the T-Birds and the Pink Ladies are singing the same song in different locations. And just as an aside, that's the problem I have with musicals. If I'm watching Star Wars, I can suspend disbelief and go along with the idea that a farm boy from Tatooine managed to blow up the Death Star. When I'm watching Grease, I can suspend disbelief to think that John Travolta, who's clearly in his mid-20s, is a high school kid, worried he's going to be late for school. Yes, you're about 8 years late for school. That's going to be one fuck of a note, but I can't get my head around the idea that if I were walking along the street humming to myself and looked round, the rest of the street would be in step and starting to dance with me. I'd think I'd had a psychotic break. Anyway, the offensive line is, "Did she put up a fight?" which is what one of the T-Birds asks Danny. And the people who cry about everything have interpreted that line to mean that Danny must have forced himself on Sandy. How likely is it that that's the meaning of that line? Because I don't think the writers, when they sat down to compose the songs, thought, what this musical needs is for the leading man to violently sexually assault the leading lady. That'll give it the feel-good factor we're looking for. And this is how upset the woke people are getting watching Grease. God help us if they ever see the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Although actually, that's got bisexual characters, transvestites, cross-dressing, and the only macho male character gets murdered. They'd fucking love it. Thanks for watching.